Hola, MMA. Can't even get the line right. Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is KidNativeBloodyElbow.com, joined for the first time and hopefully not the last by Jordan Breen, the one, the only, the king of SureDog.com talk. We have big doings. We're here to talk about Chael Sonnen's shocking, surprising, unbelievable. I can't believe this happened. Drug test failure that's booted him from UFC 75. And if you're counting, that means Wanderlei Silva couldn't be on the card because he ducked a blood test and a urine test. Chael Sonnen can't be on the card because he failed the drug test. Vitor Belfort, he's got a hearing next week to see whether or not he could have been on the card. What do you think he's going to make it? Jordan, what do you make of this? This is what we live for in this business.
Well, I was actually thinking about it earlier. I was on radio, and I was actually contemplating that Diego Sanchez-Ross Pearson is clearly going to probably stand as the biggest robbery this year. And I was thinking about the SureDog Superlative of the Year categories, and I thought this surely has to be the biggest story of the year so far, because not only does it immediately harken back to the biggest story of last year, which was all the TRT bullshit coming to a head, people finally going like, this makes no sense, this has no real place in the sport. I'm someone who wants athletes to use insane space-age steroids, and even someone like me has to look at how the TRT era was presided over and just atrocious. So it harkens back to that. It's the ramifications of the UFC continuing to book fighters who failed these tests, who have these kinds of histories, who are potentially going to put themselves in hot water. And we have the actual...
Jordan, they test the shit out of these guys. Dana White's been testing these guys. They've been in Brazil, and they've been tested.
The NSAC decides to start doing some random testing, and this guy, whoever he is, this sniper, this shooter for the ages, just goes out and starts putting scalps on the wall.
This reminds me of the California Commission a few years back when they killed Affliction by popping Josh Barnett. And they popped a lot of guys who were easy targets back then, and then suddenly they stopped. And this is new blood at the Nevada Commission that seems to be doing this. Do you sense some kind of conspiracy here? What's the deal?
I don't think there's any conspiracy. I think when you look at Sonnen's ridiculous response on the Jay Moore show, he describes
what that was before.
Go for it.
Actually, first, let us tell you what he failed the drug test for. Then, and I was just looking it up because two very interesting agents. I'm not a specialist. I'll have Eugene Robinson, the Juice Man, on the show tomorrow, and he'll know all about it.
You don't need to have a specialist to identify what these two things are for.
Clomiphene and anastrozole, which one of them, clomiphene, is a selective estrogen receptor modulator, most widely prescribed drug for ovulation induction to reverse ovulation. Is this the bitch tits thing? Is this what you take to not have bitch tits?
One is an estrogen-controlling substance, and the other is used to kickstart your testosterone production. Both of them are things you would use to get off of using testosterone. If you were no longer able to use testosterone for some reason, you needed to kickstart your body's natural, obviously lacking, but whatever natural capacity you have to still produce testosterone. In order to kickstart it, you'd need one to block the estrogen, another to promote the testosterone growth. That's what you got here. All this is him using chemicals to restart his body's natural, or whatever might be left of his body's natural ability to produce testosterone.
Because he's been on TRT since at least what? When was the first Anderson Silva fight, and he failed the drug test after UFC 117?
I mean, we're going back like 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. If
So
not
he's been on this stuff at least 4 years, and he was using it. He claims he wasn't using it without permission.
Yeah.
He claims he had a secret wink, wink, nudge, nudge deal
Exactly.
with Keith Kaiser that Matt Lindland negotiated. That Keith Kaiser vociferously denied.
Keith Kaiser's specific statement was, "I've never spoken to Chael Sonnen before in my life. This is surreal."
But Chael's story was he talked to Matt Lindland, my coach. And so anyway. So
I mean, that'll become a big part of this in a second. But anyway, like the stuff, and the stuff Chael tested positive for, it's one of those things that makes at least Chael's little segment of the story, it's the same old thing. You know, if you hate Chael Sonnen and this kind of stuff annoys you and ticks you off, more of the same. If you're a Chael Sonnen defender, or even someone who's remotely sympathetic to him as a figure, you just look at it and go, well, he was never going to start producing testosterone without this stuff. What should people expect? The crazy part is the Jay Moore interview. He basically says, well, they got me out of competition, I just jump into this fight. Well, why would you disclose it? If you're just jumping into this fight and trying to play superhero for the UFC and save the day and fight old Victor Gracie, how can't you alert them to the fact that you're taking these substances to start your body producing testosterone again, to help you get off of TRT so you can still continue to be the UFC's company man for a little bit? It's ridiculous from Chael.
Let me read Chael's statement, because there's only one Chael Sonnen, and this guy, convicted
other than Haley Joel Osment.
Yes, this guy is right up there with that governor of Illinois that went to jail, Blagojevich. As far as his ability.
Blagojevich.
All right, Chael Sonnen. They changed the ruling in Nevada earlier this year, doing away with the TRT, testosterone replacement therapy, and I was on that. So when they changed the rule, we all had to go through a transition phase. For me, during the transition, I had to take a couple of things. One is called clomiphene, and another is called HCG, human chorionic gonadotrophin. I butchered that one, but whatever. I didn't fight it or ask for a license. In the interim, they did a test, and I tested positive for these things, which I should have because I took them and they were in my system. He's an honest man there. That wasn't a surprise. These are not anabolics. These aren't steroids or performance enhancers, but they have deemed they are banned substances. What's interesting in my case is we're out of competition. These aren't things that showed up on game day. This is out of competition due to a rule they changed. So this is an odd spot for me. So poor Chael, man. I mean, it's just one of these wacky mix-ups. Like, hands were tied, dude,
It couldn't have been avoided. It was imminent. This is the problem, is that all Chael Sonnen would have had to do, because this is the thing, I doubt there's that many people, like, any good excuse, any good ruse, any good cover-up, it's only as good as the rational kernel in there. And the fact is, like, these are not things that you would take to amp up your performance. They're things that you take to help you cycle steroids or other powerful anabolic agents. So Chael Sonnen's not lying. He's just not being entirely truthful in this particular case. The real problem is, if it's true, he didn't disclose it, and that's ridiculous, because the real issue with the Anderson Silva thing wasn't that he was on TRT at the time. It's that he didn't disclose it to the California State Athletic Commission, lied, said he had a bro deal with Keith Kaiser, and then just kept lying and compounding these things, where really all he should have done is showed his paperwork to the California State Athletic Commission and said, I'm on TRT, I would like to apply for a therapeutic use exemption. And that's it. The fact that he screwed up, was so negligent previously with the disclosure issue, I mean, there still has to be repercussions and punishment. It's not what he tested positive for. It's that he tested positive while anticipating a fight. Whether it's out of competition or not, if you're going to accept the fight, how do you not bring up, oh yeah, remember, I don't know if you guys remember this, back when I was fighting Anderson, these guys, I was doing testosterone. You guys might have remembered that. I can't do that anymore. You guys might recall. I'm on some other shit now. I should probably get some paperwork done.
Well, clearly he wasn't planning on getting caught, and we'll get to the second part of his statement on the Jay Moore show in a second, because he just shit-talked Wanderlei Silva, who fled from the test. In retrospect, maybe a pretty wise decision. Wanderlei said, oh, they're doing a blood and urine test? Bye. I'm not doing it. I'm going to, I'll get a payday later. I'm going to miss this fight. Chael was all over Wanderlei for that. I mean, he was on Fox Sports. He was on the blogs. He was running his mouth about that. And here's what Chael said to Jay Moore, the other part. And here's why he thought he could get away with taking the test. What happens is they do out-of-competition testing, and the lab they went to is the USADA lab, which is the greatest lab in the world, but it's a very sensitive test. We've done our own tests at our own labs, and we thought everything was out of our system. These weren't secrets that I took these substances. This is what you have to take coming off testosterone. They can handle it however they want. They can say that it makes sense, or they can say they don't like it. The confusing part is for a non-anabolic, non-steroid, non-performance enhancing agent that is perfectly legal and that I need for a healthy life. Essentially, they're saying you have to choose between health and sport. It's very tough for me because I was very upfront about it being in my system. Why was it in my system? Because I took it. Oh, that Chael, he's always so honest. I've been taking it, and I had to take it because you guys changed the rules. I now have to go to a hearing, and I have a fight in 30 days. Oh, no, you don't. There's no way the hearing will be before then. It's just kind of a tough spot. It's like, dude, clearly he took his own test. He thought he was clean, so he just figured he wouldn't tell the NSAC. So, I mean, which is
author of your own misfortune. Here's the thing that's stupendous about the situation. There's really no questioning the hierarchy of how people came out of this in terms of public perception. And the craziest thing is, Chael is not the worst. Vanderlei did the most damage to himself because Vanderlei Silva.
Vitor. What about Vitor?
Vitor is clearly the winner here by disclosing his actual test results and just kind of owning me like, yeah, look at all these test results.
By disclosing his test results, what, 4 months after he took him? He took the test in February, fought tooth and nail against
Dude, we're not. This is not a standard of like which one of these guys behaved incredibly professionally. This is not the Olympics. We're talking about a very lowered expectation of rational PR control here. In terms of the person who came out looking the least idiotic and probably the most positive based on the public perception of them heading into this whole incident, Vitor Belfort's clearly the guy.
Really? Vitor Belfort?
Absolutely.
My wife made me hang up the phone when you asked me what the results of my test were, Belfort. Vitor, Jesus loves me, Belfort. I mean, this... Well, it is, and the only reason, or we can speculate, but it seems like the reason he released his test results is because he's got a hearing coming up on, I believe, the 17th.
That is exactly why. And he
knew they were going to come out.
Yeah, exactly. So now that's not like groundbreaking PR work. That's not like winning an award.
Pretty bad.
Yeah, but at the same time, given Vitor's history of ridiculous lying, and, I don't know, trying to get ahead of the game.
And failing steroid tests.
And
not serving his suspensions when he failed said steroid test.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, when he failed the test after Pride, he was basically told, if you go and fight anywhere out of jurisdiction, you're never going to fight North America again. He went and fought cage rage anyway. Just, it's Vitor Belfort. Fuck it. We'll do it. So, Vitor going into this, I mean... Post-TRT,
he got allowed back into Nevada because the UFC had some big money fights for him in Nevada, and the Nevada Commission.
Dude, Vitor's still going to be a title contender after all of this. Like that's still the part of the world that Vitor Belfort's part of. Vanderlei Silva might never fight for the UFC again.
You really think he screwed up that bad?
I think he'll fight for the UFC again, but it wouldn't shock me if he didn't.
It's true. But I think the only reason he's going to fight for the UFC again is because if they cut him, Bellator would sign him in a heartbeat.
Bellator signs any one of these guys in a heartbeat.
Yep.
I mean, the UFC has to try to give these guys bullshit office jobs and get them to put on a suit and tie and do the Chuck Liddell Matthews thing just to save the off chance that Bellator could repurpose any one of them into a television or pay-per-view attraction.
Any of the three, I think, would be an immediate. I mean, we saw what Bellator did reportedly 100,000 pay-per-view buys, which is way higher than we expected, and possibly even profitable, even with the Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson salaries. So, Bellator's out there ready to sign these guys up.
And they're all guys in the weight range that they could use them against guys like Tito, Rampage.
Exactly.
Makes perfect sense for them, absolutely.
And they're all well-known. They don't have to build their brands. Everybody that knows fighting knows these three cats. They're all good on TV. I mean, they're all ridiculous on TV, but they're all good on TV. Yeah. This is just magic.
You think Spike TV is really concerned about ridiculous? From the people who brought you fucking Blue Mountain State?
And Mansers and all the other great shows we love on Spike TV. I mean, it's perfect for the Spike TV brand. But what does Fox Sports think about this? Like, do they care about what this means for their brand? Is there any I mean, baseball's gone through all this torture and
as we speak, we're 15 minutes away from Chael Sonnen and Dana White going on America's pre-show, pre-game, America's pre-something on FS1 and discussing this matter. So I can only assume Dana's just gonna lay on to Chael's shoulder, just tell him what you did, son. Just tell him what you did. And Chael will just have a tearful excuse about how he thought his test was all good. Not quite so much. I'm sorry. Please forgive me.
Do you think he'll say I'm sorry? I don't think Chael Sonnen says I'm sorry. I think he says exactly what he said on the Jay Moore show.
Yeah, I agree. But I think the real implication there is, I'm sorry. I tried to do a good thing and step in and save your big fight, but they just got me, man. Like, there's some bullshit out there. I'm Chael. I was trying to do the right thing for us, for everybody. I'm the American gangster. And
but this is a life and death matter. I've got to take this testosterone or I die. Which is the storyline for these guys. And yet every one of these guys, Shane Roller, Vitor Belfort, every one of these guys seems to be able to quit and then Dan Henderson and go on fighting again after it's been banned. I mean, it's amazing.
Well, would you call what Dan Henderson did against Dan Cormier fighting? Seemed pretty cool and unusual to me.
That is a good question. Like, was it because he's old? Was it because of the head trauma from being knocked out by Vitor Belfort? Or was it because of the lack of TRT in addition to the aging and all that other stuff? Very good point. Very good point. But they're not saying, hey, I won't be a stone killer in the cage. They're saying, hey, I'm going to die if I don't take this stuff.
Well, like I said, I mean, that's Chael's famous thing. Like, I need this to live.
So do they get a substitute for Vitor Belfort in UFC 175? No, they just push this fight back down the road, and then they've got
whenever one of them gets a license, whenever one of them could feasibly be ready to go, they'll probably get thrown back in there. Especially Vitor, obviously. Vitor is still a legitimate title contender.
Now, do they bother having Vitor show up for the hearing and try to get licensed in Nevada? Why not cancel that? Book him in Brazil some more. Book him in Texas. Book him in California. And I mean, why take the risk of Vitor Belfort getting suspended for a year in Nevada?
I agree 100%. Some part of you would say, hey, I mean, you might need this guy for a Vegas card at some point in time. You might have to look into licensure. Like, what, Vitor's never going to fight in Vegas ever again? But, like you said, just who knows where we're at with this guy. You don't want to be caught off guard, caught with your pants down again. If there's no July 5th fight, and there's not, there isn't a replacement, there's no reason to get him, have him go forward with this at this point in time. So I would say definitely axe that. Don't apply for licensure. Even if you don't rebook him in Brazil, just rebook him somewhere convenient down the line and make sure everything's A-okay on Vitor's side.
I mean, the New Mexico Commission would clearly not have a problem with booking Vitor Belfort.
Raul Pujols is probably right up there, just ready to go. Rubber stamp any paperwork necessary.
All right, so one last question. How does ESPN cover it? Do they cover this? Do they go to town on this?
They ran the story.
They got TRT killed. I mean, they're the ones that ran the story that got the Nevada Commission to pull the TRT exemptions.
I feel like because Chael Sonnen gives it a hope, but I feel like it's just going to get buried. I mean, it's a hot sports time, dude. We got the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA Finals going on, stuff like that.
Wimbledon's going on.
Yeah, like is this like, maybe it makes the ticker, but like I don't think this is like Sports Center. Gotta call up Dana and Chael.
Even if you're ESPN and they want to screw Fox Sports and they just want to stick it to them one more time.
That's the way to think of it. If in fact they did do it, I can only see it as prejudicial because if you look at actual like precedent and the kind of stuff that ESPN covered during times like this, it doesn't correspond. This normally wouldn't move the needle. So if it did, I would say it kind of comes off as a little vindictive and petty. But I guess that's the sports cable media game.
And one last question: how long does Chael get suspended for, or does he get suspended at all?
I think probably 9 months at least. The fact that it's a disclosure issue, I think, actually hurts him in this particular case. If it was, I don't know, another person, another fighter, a guy who had a cleaner track record, you could maybe buy the idea of, I didn't think of it, or like I thought if I just got a test and my levels were in range, I'd be all good. Chael Sonnen went through this with the first Anderson fight when it came to just deciding, I'm not going to tell anyone. And worse, after it came out that he was just negligent and stupid, he chose to lie about it in a way that is really, really hard to fathom. Like as though no one was ever like Keith Kaiser wasn't a public figure. Like you couldn't go on the underground and ask Keith Kaiser a question if you wanted. Absolutely ridiculous stuff from Chael the first time around. And I think because he was so negligent on the idea of consent and informing the commission what he was taking and disclosing all these things, I think he probably gets at least 9 months and some kind of monetary fine.
Harsh medicine, but hard to argue with. I mean, we're looking at a convicted felon. We're looking at a guy who's got a history of this exact same screw up in the past, who's still he's not sorry in any way, shape, or form. His statement
contrition is not a big part of the Chael Sonnen shit.
No. And so, here we go. This is the bed they've made. One last question. Is Dana White still going to be talking about Chael Sonnen being the man to replace him someday after this?
I don't know. Dana White looks like a guy that, I don't know. I mean, he used to sing the praises of TRT until people told him it was bad. So,
I was looking at a picture of Lorenzo Fertitta yesterday posing with Team Alpha Male, and it looked like he could have held the whole team up on his mighty thews, man. I mean,
there's
guns.
There's a famous gag from one of the UFC gyms in Vegas that, as I tomahawk myself, there's a famous gag for the UFC gyms in Vegas that there was a picture of Jay Cutler, not Chicago Bears quarterback and noted diabetic Jay Cutler, but bodybuilder, Mr. Olympia Jay Cutler. And it was a picture of Jay Cutler's body, but the head had been removed and replaced with the head of Lorenzo Fertitta. And it was a gag that some people would come in and see it, and while some people laughed, some people wouldn't even identify immediately that that wasn't Lorenzo Fertitta's body, which I think says a lot about the chemical climate of the Ultimate Fighting Championship.
It sure does. And thanks very much for being on the show, Jordan. Where can people follow you? Twitter, Sherdog, the whole bit. Tell us where to find you.
They can follow me straight to hell on Sherdog.com and on Twitter at Jordan Breen, JordanBreen.
Excellent, everybody. I'll be back tomorrow with the usual goodness with Eugene Robinson and I as we go through the Care Don't Care preview of UFC 174. And I can tell you, in the context of this, who cares about UFC 174? We'll be mostly talking about Chael and steroids.
Oh, poor Demetrius Johnson. Boo-hoo.
Oh,
so
yeah. It is. It's a terrible thing. Well, thanks, Jordan. Adios, MMA aficionados. Remember to like this video, subscribe to MMANation.com on YouTube, follow me on Twitter at KidNate, and read this on BloodyElbow.com. Thanks again, man.